Hello Aries, today is your February reading. Here's your card here. Welcome back to Love from a Leo. Of course, I wanted to see what this reading was going to be surrounding so I can give you a little bit more insight on what's really going on for your month of February. And we got Uranus, okay? And I rarely get this card, but when I get this card, it's a very, very powerful drive behind it. And it usually represents freedom, individuality, big changes, big insights, and again, big changes, you know? So this is a really good card. I already have the chills. I just got them. So this should be a really, really good reading, and I'm very excited to read for you guys, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. Beginning of February for my Aries. And this is Sun, Moon, and Rising, okay? So starting off the beginning of your February, we have the Six of Pentacles in reverse. So there seems to be that there were some relationship ties or maybe some domestic ties that weren't necessarily serving you or the other person in the best way. So whether you were the person not giving as much energy or the other person wasn't giving as much energy, it was imbalanced, okay? And so with this situation, it was like you were prepared to move and you could do more action than you were giving yourself credit for. It was a situation where maybe you had the resources to do more or to move away from it or go towards it and fix it, but for some reason you weren't. You were just kind of staying stationary. But for whatever reason, it seems as though it's because you didn't want to move past this, I want to say relationship. And I don't mean that just in a romantic way, but whatever relationship this was dealing with, it was like you weren't ready to move past it. Whether that means you being the bigger person or you leaving that person behind, leaving that situation behind. It was just a situation where you were a little bit less than prepared to move on. It's like you were prepared, but you weren't ready to make that commitment. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think it's because you weren't ready to be on your own yet. And this could have been emotionally, and you could already be living by yourself or whatever, but it's like you weren't ready to really be alone in that sense. And you may have even felt like you weren't ready to be on your own. Yeah, it felt like you were just not, you just weren't quite there yet. You were still learning how to have that leadership as a fire sign and kind of take on the initiative. And that can be scary, you know? Fire deals with all of those scary emotions such as vulnerability, being scared, being angry. So sometimes, you know, fire can be very good when it's burning bright, but when you're not burning so bright and you feel like you're burning yourself or you're burning others, it can be really hard to make those changes that are put you in a vulnerable state, okay? So, and yeah, you were still kind of learning how to maneuver around the situation, okay? You were still being kind of the novice in the situation. Alrighty, so moving on, we have the Ace of Wands. So it seems after the situation, somehow there was a spark and stuff started happening. Stuff started moving. There were some things that started to go into motion. So let's see what this is about. Very passionate energy. Obviously, it's a fire card. Yeah, and it was something that was for your greater good. It's like you finally found the balance in what you need to do to move forward, whether you made the decision to or not. It seems as though things were just starting to click a little bit more. And this could have dealt with an Aquarius as well, or maybe just being Aquarius season, I want to say. It seems as though things just started to click a little bit more for you. When it comes to love, it's like you wanted, there was more passion with your love, maybe even a situation where something in your love life happened and it showed you what you wanted, and it kind of put this fire under your butt to like fix it or to work towards it, to keep it happening, to do what you had to do to keep it going the way that you see it going, to where you see fit. But with that, there were still some times where it felt like, you know, there was no hope for it, or maybe you were just feeling like, I don't know what to do, I feel like I'm doing a lot, or you just felt kind of stuck. Not necessarily in the situation, but the way that the situation was going, it's almost like you didn't have as much control mentally and emotionally as you would like to have. And I think it's because there was a lot of ties, whether this is the Capricorn in your life, or there was a lot of ties with your ego. I think that kind of made it hard to move forward in a way that the other person that you were having this relationship with could feel safe. The other person could feel like they can trust you, or maybe for you as well. It seems like trust in the relationship was a big thing, or not just trust, but also feeling optimistic about what's to come. I feel like it was a situation that's been ongoing, and at times it felt like there was no getting better. Sometimes you may have felt like, what's the point? Sometimes you felt like, well, if they're not going to put everything into it and I'm doing what I need to do, but maybe you weren't doing everything you could. I feel like there was ego involved, and that always messes things up when it comes to things that deal with you and another person, because your ego can tell you that the other person what they want or what the compromise that needs to happen, it'll say, no, you don't have to do that. When in reality, sometimes you do. And so with that, there was a Tower moment in reverse. So something you definitely didn't see coming, and it could have been something that wasn't necessarily on your behalf, but because you were a part of the situation, you did partake in it in some form or fashion. But I feel like the other person did something to really shake things up. And it could have been just because universe was telling them it's time to do something different, so that maybe you could have that fire behind you to fix what you needed, or to go after that soul type of passion and emotion that you were looking for. Moving on, we have the Hermit card here. So this could be a Virgo popping up in your life, or this is a time of solitude. With this Tower card that happened, it could have been that they moved on. It could have been that you guys separated. It could have been that just emotionally you had to take time to yourself and really assess what is going on in your life. So let's see why this Hermit card is coming up. I think the Hermit card can be really tough for some people. People who don't really like to go within themselves and kind of assess what's going on and pick apart the issues. But this is a very powerful card because it really shows you that the light is within yourself. And I know that sounds a little cheesy, but it really means that if you're willing to go into the depths, not so much of a Scorpio type of energy, but more of a Virgo, if you're willing to break down and be practical about what's going on, you can really find some truth within yourself. And it can give you a lot of solitude. This could also be a time of kind of taking some time away from everything else, just so you can have time to process everything as well. We have the King of Swords that's coming up as the backing card of this Hermit card. So it could also be that you are, once you had that solitude time, you were better able to really assess and calculate the bigger picture of whatever was going on. And you're definitely being more logical. So it's like a mix of practicality and logic that's coming together. And so you can really find that you can balance out the justice of what's going on in your life. And there's a Libra coming up if also it could also be a Libra, but it's a Libra energy. It's more so of you being able to balance out what's really justified, what really needs to be done. You know, that's what justice is all about. But there's definitely a sense of having more logic in the picture instead of maybe more fiery emotions or emotional watery type of energy. It's definitely more on the practical and logical side. So you're really looking at things from a perspective that maybe you haven't been looking at. And I think it also slows you down a little bit too, in a good way. Like you're able to slow down and really assess what's happening. And so instead of putting things to the back of your mind and not dealing with it, this is the time where you are really having to sit and for some of you, it can really be like a timeout, you know, sitting back and really assessing what went wrong, what you did on your part, how you participated in the things that have happened, whether it was a demise or, you know, you really are assessing it, okay? And I really like that, but I also feel like it was really, really hard for you to have this discussion, especially if it was with another person, but even with yourself, just going within yourself. I feel like this is something that you always try to run away from. You may even lie to yourself about it, or you don't take responsibility for what really is there. You're kind of being, or you used to be a little bit less than honest about the situation. So now you're at a point where you have to start doing, kind of start putting things to the side and really determining what's worth it, what is something you need to focus on. I feel like you were doing a lot of busy work, just to kind of hide away from the things that you really needed to look into, whether it was you being a better person, you in your relationship, you in your job, the way your life is going. You know, those things that you really, sometimes people don't want to think about, you know, especially a lot of fire signs. I feel like there's a lot of fire signs who have trouble really looking at things that cause situations. You're so busy on trying to go to the future and trying to create these new things, but sometimes it can be really easy to leave those things in the past and not dwell in it. Which is good sometimes, but sometimes if it's still the same cycle happening, you have to figure out where it's stemming from. You understand what I'm saying? And so for some fire signs, depending on your placements and all of that, it can be really hard. So if you have gotten to this point where you are able to assess the situation and really, really make changes, I applaud you. And you should be very proud of yourself. And I think this is something that you'll see. It's not the easiest thing to do for anyone, but once you do it, you can be a lot more clear about the things that need to be dealt with, honestly. Okay. And I'm going to take a little drink on that. 1 second. Okay. All right. So moving on to the middle of your February. Okay. So we have the Three of Pentacles here. So this is really awesome. So it seems as though after you have that time to yourself, you do have a sense of cooperation that comes into play. Things start to either work a lot smoother in different parts of your life. It could be work. I definitely think it has to do with people you have to cooperate with. It seems as though things are working out for you a little bit more. But it's also, let's see why the Three of Pentacles came up, because it could be something else. Why the Three of Pentacles come out? Yes, so it's dealing with work. It seems though things are moving a lot more smooth in work. You may have had a little boost in consistency with your money at work, meaning that maybe you had like a little raise or you got some overtime. But either way, it's just that things are moving a lot smoother in that part of your life. And also things that you have been putting a lot of effort into, not just work, but effort. It seems as though it's starting to make more sense. It's like whenever you sat down with yourself, the blessing starts to come in other ways. Like the universe is allowing you to cut you a little bit more slack, you know, so you don't feel as stressed in all parts of your life. It's only, you know, the things that you need to work on. Now you're starting to do it. So it's giving you a little bit of leeway, okay? Moving on to the Seven of Swords in reverse. I think there was maybe some past communication that could have been a little bit shady, or maybe you didn't have the full truth behind something. So let's go ahead and see what this is about. Yeah, so with some arguing, maybe some competition, some aggression, it seems as though there was the reason that happened was because of someone not being as honest as they could have. Now, this could have been you or someone else, but there were things that had to be revealed, or things that will be revealed in the middle of your February. Or it could just be a situation that's been happening, but it's shown in a different light. So you're seeing it from a different perspective. And it's making you have to put your priorities into play, and kind of juggle two things at once, or figure out what you want to, what goes where. Like, it's a priority issue. It's a sense of having to kind of reorganize the fundamentals of your life, in a sense. And it could mean ending something for sure, you know. There could also be a Cancer or Scorpio in the picture as well, if you have people that are stronger in your life with those signs. But I do feel like it's more about prioritizing and putting things away that you don't need anymore, that don't serve you. Simply because you are starting to see it in a different way, because things are different for you now. So you're able to look at things in a different way. Moving on to the Seven of Cups. So there's options, okay? So let's see what options this is dealing with and what form of your life. Okay, so again with this water sign, or it could just be the relationship that you're having with someone. It's almost like you need to make a decision. You need to make a clear decision, because there's a sense of someone, either you or the other person, or just the relationship in general. There's a neediness. There's a need to have this person around, and it kind of is coming off as a little toxic. But only in a way, because it's like it may push you back in progress. Not that you can't be around this person, but it's more of a sense of, why do you have to be around this person, instead of it just being a mutual, more loving type of vibe. It's like a needy vibe. And so I feel like there may be a moment where you have to kind of look at the situation, and you may have options on, you know, whether you want to stay or whether you want to go. But for some reason, I feel like it's a situation that's a little bit more, you have to go within yourself and figure out what you want. And also figure out why you're so defensive, or figure out why the way things are going, like, why is it that you have to be like that? Because it seems as though when you're by yourself, things aren't the way that they are when you guys get together. And so it's a situation of still both parties needed to go within themselves and figuring out why it is that way, and why can't you coexist without there being like this kind of needy energy that's involved. Because when this needy energy is involved, it causes situations where you have to make big decisions. It causes kind of like this eclipse and this kind of like self-realization that can be really hard to get through. But for some reason it keeps happening because the issue with the neediness has not gone away. The issue with not being emotionally intelligent. For some of you, you could just be not being considerate of someone's emotions. And so it's causing these crazy, chaotic moments until you get past it. So maybe it's like you need to go within yourself. And I feel like a lot of you may know what this is about. It's just a matter of not knowing how to change it. Or not knowing if you want to change it. Maybe you enjoy this cycle. Maybe it's like this sick kind of twisted love thing that you just can't get away from. And it could also stem from someone feeling just left out, you know, in many ways. So going to the end of February. End of February. So we have the Ten of Swords in reverse. So there's something that should have been left in the past that still is lingering now. So it's going to cause a little stench, and it's definitely in regards to your emotional life. You're not having that much optimism about your emotional life because for some reason there's something that's still, it just isn't right. It's something that needs to be worked on and dealt with, and it hasn't been. And it could be someone is being really cold, or someone isn't having that discussion that needs to be had. And it's definitely in regards to your love life. And there's changes that can happen, but it's like you won't even allow them to because you were still stuck in this mindset of, I don't want to have the conversation. And if it's not you, then it's the other person that's in the situation. And so when this happens, I feel like someone's feeling very insecure about something, or someone's, instead of having a mature conversation about it, they may be telling the wrong person, or they could also be they just start going off because they can't take it anymore. And it's kind of like this buildup, you know, and it needs to be expressed. And it's not being allowed to be expressed. So whether it's you or the other person, it comes to a situation where maybe you start doing things you don't have any business. The other person starts talking too much to different people, or just spilling their guts out to you. And you're like, wow, you really felt this way? So figure out what that situation that you have been avoiding is, and really fix it, because it's starting to smell, you know. We have the Strength card here. So this could be a Leo in your life. But if not, it's just a situation of health. I do think that if you have been feeling a little off lately, you will start to feel better towards the end of February. Let's go ahead and see why this Strength card is also coming up. Okay, so this could be you, Aries. But it seems as though now you're starting to have a little bit more strength in doing things that you don't necessarily know how it's going to turn out, but you're having the confidence to just go out there and attack it anyways, because you know that eventually you'll be able to have things that are successful come your way. It's kind of like you don't have the full plan, but you have the next step that you need to take, so you're doing it and you're going for it because it feels right. So that's that fiery energy coming back in, and you're kind of just going with your intuition, right? This is exactly what you wanted. And again, this could definitely be involving a Leo. But it's a situation where you are understanding what you want because you took enough time to look within yourself, and you know what you want now, and so you're going after it. Okay, so but my advice to you would just be, don't think too much, but at the same time, don't do something that you know will just backfire. Okay. We have the World card ending off your February. So this is amazing. This card signifies, it's basically saying congratulations. This card signifies the end of an old cycle and the beginning of a new one, but it's because you have went from an innocence to enlightenment. So this whole February makes me feel like you have been trying to really understand and get to the bottom of what the issues are. And it wasn't easy, but once you did that, it seems as though you really are going to be, having success in all forms of life. And that's what this card is really about. So whether it's in your job, in your relationship, and your just you as a person, you're having abundance in that, and it's going to feel like you're being honored in a way that feels really, really good. And it ends your February off saying that you completed and you achieved something that needed to be achieved. Let's go ahead and see what more details I can get on the World card. I don't know what's going on with my voice, y'all. More details on... There we go. So you have peace. And for a lot of you, if you were dealing with this emotional relationship, Whether you are alone at the end of February, meaning like single, or you are back with this person and things are just going well, whichever way it is, you are having peace and you have achieved something, whether it was leaving something that served as a lesson in your life that you won't be able to really understand until you get to that point, whether you finally let go of it or whether you finally figured out how to fix it. You achieved something that's amazing, something that was always on your mind, something that you probably were running away from a lot of the times. But we have your card here, Aries, and it's like you're really at this point where you have achieved so much and you've grown so much. But it's because you went within yourself. You went for yourself. You helped yourself, you know what I mean? You really looked through something and you walked away from something that maybe needed to be left behind, whether it was an ego thing, whether it was control, whether it was being too invested in your work life. It was like you left something behind that wasn't really helping you all the time, and in many ways it was pushing you back. But now you're at a point where you are really sitting sitting pretty and sitting independent and sitting in a way where you have found your personal individuality in regards to other people, but also just yourself, being able to really sit with the nitty-gritty details that sometimes you may not really want to look at, and I just feel like it's a really good thing. I feel like everything plays out the way it needs to, and the only way you'll be able to know what that means for you is to go through this February, okay? So I would recommend coming back if you're starting to feel like things are getting a little sketchy for you throughout this February. You can also email me at lovefromaleo@gmail.com if you would like a personal reading, so we can really get to the nitty-gritty of what's going on, whether it's a love reading, a career reading, whether it's a past life issue that you want to get handled, anything of that sort. Just email me and we can get one going for you. Thank you so much for coming back to visit me at Love from a Leo. And yeah, I'm Love from a Leo. If I'm not your favorite Leo, then one day I will be. And until next time, Aries, I will see you very soon. Bye, love.